Hi, I'm Dylan.
I am Nathaniel.
Hi, I'm Neil. You're muted.
Hi, I'm Nicole.
And this is Youth on Subjects of the World. So welcome. And today we have a guest. So I guess other than hi, I'm Nicole, would you like to introduce yourself other than just, hi?
Sure. My name is Nicole Coulter. I was invited here because I have had the pleasure of seeing your presentation, you and Dylan, at the recent Aero conference. And I have an interest in youth entrepreneurship. It's sort of my next journey. So I'm curious to hear what you have in the way of questions. But my background is that I started my career in corporate America. Not a good place to start for someone who's highly creative. I felt very trapped. And after about 7 years there, I started my own business. And then over the course of 12 years, it started 3 different businesses. And we were a completely self-employed family. And then I actually, because of my daughter's struggle in school, decided I was really interested in unschooling. It came to that concept really late, but I've been studying that for the last 3 years alongside my study in creativity and change leadership. So those are sort of the backgrounds that I come from, and I'm curious to hear more from you guys as well.
Awesome. So I guess, does anyone want to start off with a subject to talk about? Does anyone?
Well, Nicole, I guess I've always been fascinated with entrepreneurship because I know our plan. I don't know if the audience knows that that's kind of the whole thing about this interview is just about entrepreneurship as kids.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought that was really I just applied for my first job, which I guess is kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember a couple summers ago, it was pretty funny. Me and my friends, we started, we had a lemonade stand because we're right on this big road, our house, on a relatively big road. And God, they were all my friends were kind of pissed because we had to lug this huge table up this hill. We had to lug a huge table for half a mile and then get on top of this hill and set up a sign. But the people are going 40 miles an hour on the road. So somehow we had this whole setup where my little brothers would go down at the end and hold up signs saying to pull over. And then by the end, they liked it, though, because they all made $50. We made $200 in 3 hours or something ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really I always loved that. The feeling of making money. Even though that sounds kind of stupid. I don't know. The power makes
I love money, the power of it.
It is empowering.
It is.
And I think it's important, before this started, I had a brief conversation with Jim, and it was saying that whole idea that when it comes to entrepreneurship, you are doing more of the work on the front end and the money comes later. So that aspect of what you just described, of having to lug the stuff up the road and the hill and all of that is the way it always works.
Mm-hmm.
And work works a completely different way. Work, if you go and get that job, they're going to hire you. And from the moment that you start training, usually they're paying you by the hour, but you're usually not going to make $50 in 3 hours.
Yeah.
Especially, you may, but starting out, especially, I don't know how old you all were, at that age, you probably couldn't even work and get a job.
No.
So how do you use this time that you have? Which obviously, because, I've followed this show a little bit, so I know a little bit about each of you, including Nathaniel was recently trying to make the case for unschooling, is the aspect that when you have all this time to do something with, and you're doing a whole bunch of things, is entrepreneurship something you should consider? And what are the steps you can take now to actually do that?
Mm-hmm.
And part of it is experimenting, like what you did. The lemonade stand, you learned a lot in that process. If I was to try and dissect it, I'm sure I'd be you didn't first put those guys down the road to flag people. You realized people were going too fast. How do we slow them down?
Mm-hmm.
So it's very in the moment experiential. So trying to for me, when I think about creating a program to try and help people, what I'm ultimately hoping to do is to have groups of teenagers go through here. We're all starting day one. We all want to embark on the journey towards our own freedom of financial freedom in entrepreneurship. And we don't even know what we want to do. We don't know how to do it. And creating that journey where we walk together and we learn from each other. So it's less about learning from me, because the businesses I started are very different than what you guys would do.
What kind of businesses have you started?
So the first business was that, and I was really against franchises when I first started thinking about business. But the first business was a franchise just because I was moving to a whole new area at the same time. And it was a science education company. So we did after-school programs, workshops, birthday parties. That exists around the country. Some people may have heard about it. Mad Science was the actual name. So they exist, I know, throughout Jersey and everything. And then we had no good place to advertise that business. And that was a problem. So that's one of the things with entrepreneurship is like, once I started the first business, they trained me in everything that they believed I needed to know to run that business. However, the power of the franchise was that I had a whole network of franchisees around the country that I could turn to with my problems, and they would help me figure them out. So the training was helpful. I'm not going to dismiss that it was helpful, but I think the network is what allowed us to have the continued success.
Yeah.
And when I had no good place to advertise and all the other people around the country were advertising in a certain nationwide magazine, I was like, well, maybe it's here in my area. And when it wasn't here in my area, all it took for me at that point, now that my mind was sort of open to an entrepreneurship thinking, when I went to their website, it said, not one in your area, publish your own. And that was it. I was like, well, I could become a publisher. Why not? Like, what would that take? And I started to look into it. And now I had solved the problem on my first business. I created a way to advertise that first business. And it was this one that I actually really enjoyed. So my husband started to run the first one and I ran the second one. And then the third one was that all throughout the second business, we had participated in what was called a barter exchange, which you're familiar with barter, right? Like trading stuff without cash. And this one was that I operated like a bank for barter dollars. So instead of you saying you're a self-sustaining farmer and you are, got a bunch of these awesome vegetables, you're doing a CSA to your local community supported agriculture. Neil is a guy who's into nutrition science, wants your highly organic foods, and he wants, but you don't want what he's doing, right? So how do I make, barter usually has it where Dylan would have to buy from Neil and Neil would have to give Dylan something. In this case, acting as a bank for barter dollars, Dylan could buy from Neil and Neil could buy whatever Nathaniel had. So it's just you, and I just moved the value in accounts. So I was really moving dollars that weren't real dollars, and it was interesting. But at that time, it's when I proved that I was no longer interested in just business, because I actually had a desire to work with youth for a long time before that. And so then when I couldn't make that business interesting, it was, okay, now it's time for change. And so that was my last one.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah.
So,
and they're not things that were, a lot of times people are choosing things they only see instead of learning how to see more. Like learning how to see opportunity is, in my opinion, the first thing you have to kind of tackle in an entrepreneurship thing, because you might want to do something and yet there may not be a market for it, and it may not be. A lot of times you're seeing things like the lemonade stand where you could make some money, but you're still lugging the stuff up the hill. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you don't really like about it. It's just a means to money instead of something that's really enjoyment all around.
Yeah, like lugging the stuff up the hill wasn't all that fun.
No.
But it's like, I like the idea of like I might not like this now, but I like what I'm gonna be able to use with the, like after I use this effort, after this discomfort, I end up with a product that I'm happy with.
Yeah.
I can buy anything I want. Like I did some work yesterday for my dad, and for doing that work, I get X amount of dollars. And like, even though I really didn't mind the work. It was like digging out like kind of like a trench. I get like a small trench. But I kind of like working outdoors. So it wasn't that bad for me, but he didn't want to do it. So it's like I got to do something that I got enjoyment out of that he didn't want to do, and in return I got money. So it's like double cha-ching.
Yeah, and at this point, any opportunity, so lots of experience is important too. Like, why not do all of them at this point? But you have to, when you're talking about, like, say, if you're going to try and use this time to then build towards a career, like an entrepreneurship career, you're going to find one of these that you really like. And that's the thing that I'm saying you then say. So like in your case, self-sustaining farming.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you see as a business?
No, not really.
And is that because
I don't really plan it on being, at least my idea of it now, like it could be. Like,
Yeah.
So in my mind, there's two ideas, whether it can be a business or on the other hand, all the food is just for me. And then I don't have to sell it. Like the whole idea that it's self-sustaining.
Yes. So all the food could be for you. Do you think there'd be other people? Do you know a place where you could learn how to do this now?
Well, I had the idea of going to like a commune.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be pretty fascinating. I'm pretty sure I could pick up some skills there. Or just like working at a farm. There's plenty of farms near my house. Not like, I guess I don't want to be like a big farm corporation because that would kind of suck.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, there's plenty of places to learn how to farm.
Yes. And some of those places are places that have like an educational environment, like it's like a place people go, whether it's like a gap year type program. You're seeing a lot of these, like you could, create something, say, this is the lifestyle I want. Now, how do I create something that's a business around it? And it may be the first thinking that you had was, I'm not wanting to sell vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
But what else around that? The commune idea, an education around it. Like what else can you combine with it becomes part of how do you think about the opportunity that's there or not there. Sometimes it's not there.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I look at like, how do you create the life you want? And I want freedom. Then I think that's one of the things you guys have already experienced. So entrepreneurship also provides that to a large extent.
Yeah, I wanted to talk for a second about, because, obviously the podcast is a lot about, and, the conference I went to, it's a lot about not just necessarily unschooling or Sudbury schooling, which Dylan and I are very familiar with because we go to Sudbury school, but mainly just, alternative education. And you see a lot, especially in like studies where you see people with either more unschooling backgrounds or more Sudbury schooling backgrounds are much more likely to become entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. So I guess I would ask, and that's a statement, and then I would also incorporate a question into that for you. So how would you, recommend or advise, if you think, you could advise someone, how would they pursue not necessarily just an entrepreneurial path, but converting what they want to do into an actual profitable business, not just, just I want to run a business, because no one just, it's always from something, right? You don't say, I want to go run a business now. So, and that's what happens with a lot of either unschoolers or Sudbury schoolers or what have you. It's, they want to, they're a lot more, on average, a lot more open-minded and free-thinking and, self-directed is the word I'm looking for, I guess.
Yeah.
What would be your advice? And not just for that, but for anyone in general as well.
So in terms of my assessment of, and I know like Peter Gray and Gina Riley have done the stuff on the unschoolers and all that. And when it comes to why I think they also go more towards entrepreneurship is one of the things that I noticed when I did run the magazine was I was selling ads to business owners. So my conversations every day were with small business owners. And the ability to make that leap from a lifestyle of schooling as their upbringing, and then maybe college, and then jobs, and to make the leap into the way you have to function as an entrepreneur was very uncomfortable for a lot of people. And it's hard for me to kind of say exactly what that looked like, but I know they were trying to control things that are really hard to control. They were risk averse, all of these things. And so as someone who's already been pursuing unschooling, I say you've already made that entrepreneurial leap because you've rejected the status quo of school. You're doing your own thing. You're used to experimenting. And
Right.
so it would be really continuing that and actually experimenting with the things that you're interested in. But it's also like paying attention to the subtle voids or problems that arise. So like in my case, where I stand right now, I know that I have an interest in doing education, but doing it in a self-directed way, like creating offerings where people who are in this, who are already self-directing as learners or schools. And so I go to the Aero conference with the intent of saying, I don't know what I want to do yet, but I know this is the community I want to serve because this is what I'm passionate about. Because for me, one thing I've proved over the time is that I was a great salesperson, but I need to have a product I want to sell that I really believe in. Like you can't just give me like, here's widget A and I can tell you how widget A is better than widget B because it's not going to come across as authentic for me. So it's the first step for me in any person trying to do this journey is to really say, like, what are the things I really, really want? And so like Dylan has said, he wants to, he likes being outside, right? And he wants to have this self-sustaining farming. And so I would ask yourself questions about that, like, how can I make money while I'm doing that? Because self-sustaining, you may want things other than just eating your own vegetables.
Yeah.
You may have other bills that you still have to cover. And so like, how do you do that? But the belief is there that you can actually do it. Like there's lots of people who the minute I start talking about like what they want to do, they're just like, well, that won't work. Or, they're not deferring judgment on the actual possibilities. They don't think in terms of possibility thinking. They just are completely narrow focused. So it's like really trying to open up your focus. And I've, in terms of my experience with people in unschooling, is their interest is very diverse a lot of times. Like even though they might have like narrow interests of something that's like deep, they have a deep interest. They have a very broad interest in a lot of things. And then they have this narrow interest in something, and they go really deep in that. So, but the diverse interest will bring you ways to combine unique things. So I think it's still just actually, part of your learning is the way you're learning, you are already doing things very entrepreneurial. So it's a matter of constantly saying, like, is there a market here? Is there a way to make money doing this?
Just like realistic and critical thinking, which is what normally like they, do have to do on a daily basis if you're having self-directed learning, right?
Yeah. So when I said I saw your presentation, I heard you loud and clear saying that there's a trust problem with parents who are putting their kids in schools. And so like, that was very loud and clear. And into my entrepreneurship ears, I said, is that a problem that I can solve? And is that a problem I would want to solve? And is there a market for this? And I immediately started talking to other school owners at the conference saying, I attended this workshop and, they were there too. And there was a lot of people saying like, this is a problem. And it makes sense because, when a person was just unschooling their kids, they're the facilitator of the learning and they're the parent. When your parents hand you over to Sudbury or any self-directed learning center, they are now just the parent and they're not the facilitator of your learning. And that puts them in an uncomfortable position. And what I heard was no one is trying to really help them through their uncomfortable position. They don't have a facilitator of that. And is there a market for that? And right now, this is a small space in terms of the market, like the overall amount of people who are self-directing their education is still relatively small. But if I think about what I might like to do, that is something I might like to do, is helping parents kind of overcome that aspect. And that came from my sitting through your workshop but I had heard the trust issue a couple of times. I had experienced the trust issue myself, but it was listening to how loud and clear your message was that actually made me realize. So it's kind of like you're percolating on things, all of you have things that you're experiencing, and when you see something, you're like, oh, well, people are buying this thing. Like, why are they buying this thing? And if they're not buying this thing, like, and I said, Pokemon Go, something came up with this the other day. And when that first came out, I said to my kids, like, who's making money off this? And they were like, well, no, it's free. And I'm like, no, your eyes are the product. And who's making money off of it? And it's that's the critical thinking of realizing, well, do I want to be in that business of like making my eyes or this one's eyes the product? But it's a big business. So you decide those kinds of things along the way, but you have to become aware of seeing how I'm seeing advertising in something, somebody's paying for that. If I'm handing over money, I'm paying for that. So like, why am I handing over this money? What about this product is interesting to me? Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that answered your question though.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, good. Sometimes I'm like,
Nicole, what got you? How'd you find out about unschooling?
Alternative education in general.
Yeah, I know that I did my research. Like I had a friend, my daughter had struggled throughout school, and she was in her second high school and did not want to go back to that one. And a friend of mine said, you should just homeschool her. And I was like, nope, not me, not going to happen, And, but I did research it enough, and I stumbled upon unschooling as a concept, fell in love with the concept. And like when I say that I've spoken on the trust issue, I've written, the sentence pretty much goes, I didn't trust her, myself, or our relationship to bear the weight of responsibility for her education. Like I wasn't there. And there wasn't a Sudbury, or there wasn't an ALC or any of those things. And so I luckily found her a third school, but it was still in my mind that there should be something better. And that was also like, in thinking back on it, I realized that as an entrepreneur, if I had seen that the lifestyle I was already leading could have provided her with so many learning opportunities, if I had understood what because I really didn't understand what unschooling was when I first encountered it. And I don't remember where I first encountered it, who I read, but if I had understood that, I think I would have went for it. So that's one of the things too, is that I think there are plenty of parents who are entrepreneurs who would probably embrace self-directed education more so because they are living that self-directed life already. And they kind of know, like I knew, like none of my schooling prepared me for what I was doing as an entrepreneur, like absolutely none of it. So I was figuring it out as I went along, and I was learning from that. That network is really the thing that I think is the biggest value to people, is that you are in relationship with other people who are trying to do the same thing, because all of your antennae are up then, and you're not just depending on your own, like what I can see and what I think. You're coming together and having these dialogues with people, debates, of is this better or that better, and you're figuring it out as you go that way. So.
Mm-hmm. What was your like child experience, like your childhood?
Um,
And I'm
it
assuming
was,
you're asking education, Dylan. I mean,
Yeah, that everything. I mean,
okay. So I actually grew up in New York, city area,
oh,
and
cool.
you have a lot of exposure to a lot of things. I'll use the part of my experience that ties into my entrepreneurship is that one of my best friends was, her grandmother had sold art her whole growing up. Like she had this huge art collection she inherited and she just kept selling it off piece by piece. And so I think that kind of showed her that like, oh, you don't have to go to work to actually make money, that there's ways to, and she started where she was making bracelets and I was like, oh, I want to make bracelets and where would we sell our bracelets? And my mom went to bingo, so we decided we were going to sell bracelets at bingo. And then it was, during the week, I'd make bracelets. My mom would take them on Friday night and she would sell them and we were making money, like kind of like the lemonade stand. Like this is actually pretty cool that you could do it on your own schedule. And that actually became my business partner later on. So, I mean, it's
that's pretty
the
cool.
rest of the childhood. I mean, it's when you think about things that have influence on you, like you guys being in self-directed education is probably one of the most influential things of your childhood when you look back. There'll be lots of things that you can probably tie to it. Mm-hmm. For me, I had sort of the unfortunate situation where my dad died when I was 10. And that's one of the things that I know like really changed because I had to figure a lot of things out. It's like I became an instant problem solver because there became a lot of problems basically. Mm-hmm. And so I've looked at that and said, it kind of made me definitely stronger, but it definitely created the problem solver in me.
Yeah. I know. I'm always interested to see what like I know for sure. Like I've even thought about it on my own about like just thinking into the future, how unschooling is going to change, like shape who I am when I get older. Mm-hmm. I'm always curious to think like how is it going to do that? Like I know it will, but I don't see it now, or at least like not clearly. Maybe
so you don't see a difference between just you and peers that are schooled.
No, well, I see that.
Okay.
I mean, like in the future as an adult.
Okay.
I'm curious to see how it's going to shape who I am, but I absolutely see a difference between me and any person from public school.
Yeah, and that actually then just gets bigger over time. It's like because it's an incremental mm-hmm. development, right?
I think it's really fascinating too. On public schools, there's like I just thought about this now. How there's no classes on entrepreneurship. It's like it seems like such an obvious thing.
You have to understand, not even entrepreneurship, Dylan. You also have to understand that there aren't even classes on. They don't even want you to like really start thinking about like your career or your future until like much later than they probably should.
No, I just think it's absolutely.
It's just ridiculous. And like when you have the time, either unschooled or separate school or hopefully you have enough. You're lucky enough to naturally be like a critical thinker who thinks about these things ahead, or be raised by parents who like promote that, or if you're lucky enough to be in an environment while also in public school that promotes, thinking ahead and think like, okay, what do I want to do? How can I apply what my passion is into, actually being able to sustain, my existence? But a lot of times the people who do quote know what they want to do, it isn't what they want to do. It's what their parents want them to do. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so it's really like, where at Sudbury School or unschooling, you really just, you kind of have to think about it. Like, technically you don't have to, but no one's that, I feel like people really
just get way too
undervalue how reasonable kids are. Like, people really undervalue that. It's like, mm-hmm. Not every child, like, where's this magical, this is like, I feel like everyone thinks it's like this magical barrier. Like, once you cross that barrier, you become extremely reasonable and you are able to pursue what you want to pursue. It's like ridiculous. And in fact, so on the study, you're talking about Dr. Riley and Dr. Peter Gray, they, on their study, they were saying the unschoolers that were surveyed, the adult unschoolers, who the vast majority were all financially independent, stated that one of the best parts about being unschooled is that when they got to college, like all of their roommates, like everyone was just being crazy. Like they were just doing such stupid, short-sighted things in their opinion. Like they were like drinking right before like there was a thing in the morning, and it didn't make any sense. They're going out to parties and during like when something important needed to be done, and it's like, well, it's because it's the whole forbidden fruit.
Because unschoolers are losers.
Yeah, unschoolers are losers. Just stay at home. But so it's like you have this mentality where when they finally are, quote, free of the reins and they finally have access to all these things that they were totally like beat out of their like minds that like you cannot do that. You have to do this, and this. Well, when you actually are forced to take responsibility early on, it really shows.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that's also very important for entrepreneurs.
It's surprising too, like, not saying I definitely have been much more spoiled than a lot of, like, compared to other people in that I know, but it's like fascinating that there are kids that like we meet that at Sudbury that like have never worked at all ever. Like, I don't even know if they've ever done a chore or know what a chore is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like totally like, have you ever worked ever? Because we just have basic cleanup time and they're like, I don't want to clean. I don't have to clean.
I don't think that's necessarily a lack of knowing what chores or anything. I think that's just they want to do what they're doing and they just don't want to stop. We're like, well,
no.
You have to stop.
Well, you know what I mean, Neil.
I know who you're talking. I know the people you're talking about, and I know. Well, I think there are other problems for some of the people.
Yeah, there are, but
Yeah.
even still, like there are people that have never done freaking chore in their life. It's infuriating.
Work.
Not good preparation for the future.
Worthless.
Well, it's not like you have to be. It's not like you're worthless if you don't work. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying, Dylan's like
worth a lot less.
All those guys haven't worked. He's like this grandpa.
Look at an 80-year-old man.
Like, look at all these kids. They're not working like they should. Let's go shoot a duck.
But I think it's interesting that, I work actually is one of the things. Currently right now I do work in a high school because it's my only outlet to actually interact with teenagers locally, or at least the one that I've currently found. And I do community service with them at least. It's not like a regimented education program. It is, there are students who feel the same way, but there's a lot more who are just like, oh, whatever, you didn't do anything. You don't want to do anything. Like it's kind of an apathy thing, I think, where it sounds like what I'm hearing from you guys is like, you're pursuing something and you're kind of like, why aren't they pursuing something? Or is that what I'm hearing? Like, or I don't know, I guess tell me more about what you're saying there.
I don't know, Dylan. What were you? Because I don't know.
What do you mean, Nicole?
Well, I guess what I'm asking is like, you're frustrated by them having not done those things, but that happens everywhere. So is there something about like your school that makes you more frustrated by that, or that your experience or your vision?
Well, I think it's probably because everyone just has to like pull their own weight and they won't even do that. They expect, and it's like, and it's not like they just sit there and the fact about Sudbury is at least they learn. Like they learn, I can't just sit here and have everyone do my stuff for me. If I make a mess, I pick up my mess. You have to be self-sufficient. And I think when people don't learn as fast, it's not like we're, oh my God, you better get up and do that stuff, kid. It's just kind of like, it's kind of a subtle, the whole point of, I guess, Sudbury is like more of a subtle, not subtle. It's, they learn from a peer process. So if they don't do the job, they go to JC. And then I guess it gets frustrating when you have repeat offenders, when they just keep not doing it over and over again. It's like, come on, man, you got to do your cleanup job. And they're just like, okay, I will. And then come cleanup time next day, they don't do it. But I like what Sudbury is that it's a direct peer-to-peer process. They don't come from these peers saying, you shall clean up. It's your friends and the people that, and you could literally sit there in JC, get told by this one person on JC, totally get told off. You need your cleanup job. You cannot be doing this. You're part of this community. And then next JC, it gets flipped around and you're on the panel and you actually talk to them. So I think it's just about, and I think that's really, it's not because I'm doing it because my superior told me to. I'm doing it because my peers told me to. I think the reason it gets kind of irritating is when they just it's kind of when they lie, like when they lie, oh, I'll definitely do it, and then they just don't do it. It's more, I mean, it's also kind of, it happens in the real world too. Someone lies directly to your face. It's like, you're not gonna like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like, I think that's what's really fascinating about Sudbury is like the JC aspect of it. Like, I know me and Neil, we were hanging out a few days ago, and there's this guy we were talking to about Sudbury, and he was a public school teacher, and he did not seem to understand the fact that we
It was actually kind of hilarious.
It was pretty funny. He could not
he could not comprehend it. Like, we said it's a democratic school, and he's like, I don't believe that. And we're like, what do you mean you don't believe it? He's like, I don't believe it's democratic. And he said, well, they call America a democracy. And he said, yeah, America's a democratic republic. We're a direct democracy where the students directly vote. And I don't think he was stupid. I think he literally thought that there's no way they would have this happen. There was no way they would allow this. He wasn't even like, I don't like that idea. He wasn't even like that. He was just, I just can't see that being allowed to happen. And
it's just like total disbelief that, like, he just thought we were being conned essentially into thinking we had power. Yeah.
And it's kind of sad when it's a radical concept, but when even a concept is so hard to grasp that some people just can't believe it because it's so ingrained in our culture.
Yes. So the so ingrained part is the aspect of how do you package something to be understood. And I know that that's in direct conversation or in marketing communication, but when it is so against what, the school concept or what we know of as school currently, it's why it's really hard. You may be doing a fantastic job communicating and they're just stuck in disbelief. So it's a hard thing to get over.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So, do any of you have any sort of questions about like the entrepreneurship thing, or just
how would you say?
What would you think? I guess my curiosity for all of you would be, and because you said they don't teach it in school. It's actually something this year that I hope to do as an after-school program at my school, just because I had some students last year who I took like 6 students to this guy does this Great American Tech Tour, he calls it, and they did a daytime event for high school students, and I brought them there, and he kept saying, you should come back tomorrow night and see the entrepreneurs pitch, and you should come back tomorrow night. And when we got in the car, I was like, would you guys want to go back tomorrow night? And like unanimously, all 6 of them were like, yes, we would. So I was like, well, I got to see if I could get all the approvals and stuff, because usually we don't do things don't move that quickly inside of the public school. And we did, and we went back, and they actually found that more valuable because they were listening to like these actual entrepreneurs trying to explain their businesses, trying to get funding, which of course, I guess the best way to say it is I'm not a fan of the whole just pitch, and like a lot of programs will try and gear all new entrepreneurs towards this whole pitch for funding aspect. And I know that Jim has spoken on this too. We agree on the fact that there's a difference between making money and raising money. And so like you may need to raise money at some point, but like that actually you turn over so much ownership. So it's like, but regardless, it was a good way to introduce them to the concept, and they want to do it this year after school. And I don't know what that'll look like yet, because I'm trying to do it where it is more self-directed, where it is more interest-driven, and co-creative, like actually creating it alongside, like, because you guys have great ideas, I'm sure, on what has worked for you learning other things, like whether it's, well, we could find some podcasts that would work, or we could find some videos, or, like, what would you think would be a way to,
well,
I guess for content or for media, I think is what I'm most interested in, because what I say, the main thing that I think is valuable is having a cohort, a small group of people starting at the same place, walking together, because that creates your instant network of people who know you, they know you like you guys know each other. Do you see what I'm saying? And so you work well together, partly because you've been walking together and know each other so well.
Mm-hmm.
So what else?
It seems a lot like your franchise. People going through the same struggle. Struggle.
Yes, even though it wouldn't be the same business. In our case, it was. But there's a lot of similarities between business on like, you know, I encounter a lot of times people who can't price themselves, their product or themselves. They're, you know, when you sit there and think, you know, my husband, when we first started, the franchise said he should charge like, say, $175 for a show. And he was like, that's a lot of money. And he was like having a hard time charging $125. And then 10 years later, you know, he has no problem asking for like $495 for a 45-minute show because he knew the market was, if you want me on a holiday weekend to entertain 500 people, like it's $500. Do you see what I mean? Like, so it's, but it's like a mindset that has to shift in you to be able to ask for the more money. And then you have to figure out how to package it. So like, that's something I know how to help people through, but like how to, and how to reach, like, I guess more like where at the Sudbury schools, has this ever come up like with your friends, and do you do anything entrepreneurial now? Because I know some schools do, like I think I've seen some stuff at ALCs or Actons that do entrepreneurial things already.
I don't think anything like that has ever come up because a lot of other Sudbury schools I think have like kind of like their own businesses. Like they have lunch stuff where you can buy snacks. We haven't really done that yet.
I think what happens in a lot of other Sudbury schools is not necessarily like, yeah, what Dylan was saying is true, but it's not necessarily structured at all. It's more kids literally, you know,
kids wanting to make money. It's like
wanting to make money and doing certain things. We haven't had that particularly as much. I mean, if you talk, like, we have initiative-driven things, obviously, but you know, that'd be kind of interesting to do at our school. Not necessarily because we can't like go to school meeting. I propose that one of the students comes here and tries to sell something. Like, you know, we can't do that, but I think it'd be interesting to have. I wouldn't necessarily say, of course, I don't know. It'd be interesting to pursue that, considering the amount of Sudbury students that become entrepreneurs. It's like 42 or 47% of them become entrepreneurs. So, I mean, I think that'd be an interesting thing to do. I mean, we already have like a lot of the traits of it. We have to take initiative to do literally anything in the school. We have to take initiative just to be in the school because, well, I guess technically not really because someone tells you to do your cleanup job, but yeah, so I guess not really. But to do anything in the school, you really have to take initiative. If you want anything to change, if you want to hold your ground in JC, if you think someone wrongly accused you, you need to be able to take the initiative to actually think about your case and think, okay, how am I going to defend myself?
Yes, you definitely need that.
It might be interesting to do, I think.
I would start that. Nicole, like, what's your number one? Like, I don't know if you thought of it, but like your number one piece of advice to a kid who's trying to get started and starting their own business.
That's a good question.
I was about to say that's a good question.
That is a good question.
We can come back to it if you...
No, I mean, well, so the first thing that just came to mind is actually like this idea of believing it's possible, because I've encountered so many people who, and maybe I haven't had as many conversations with youth about this, but in terms of adults, and so I would imagine that the thinking would be there too for younger people, is just the aspect of like, feeling like that's too hard and it's too scary. Like there's a lot of people who get very scared by the whole concept. And I'm not sure, I obviously there are people who lose money. Like, you know, there's things, you know, because failure is part of, this is one of the things that, you know, I wrote down as a note, like I wanted to make sure I mentioned like how you learn from failure. And like, that is one of the things I definitely see in school is like failure becomes this very final type thing. You failed this class, you failed that test, like maybe you get a second chance, but it's not really something that I feel like you learn from in school. Whereas in entrepreneurship, failure is data that you learn from. Like if you have to be able to like look at it like that. So if you come to failure with this and you try and make it like as if you're a failure because you had a failure, which I think a lot of people do, then it makes it really hard to get past it. And these are things that, like I said, I think that you more would be dealing with, like you probably have failed at things like, oh, I tried to do this thing and learn this thing and it didn't work that way. So like now I have to try it a different way. Like would you agree that you guys kind of like, if you really want something, you go at it one way, which you decided what that way is. And then if that didn't work, you go at it a different way.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think at least for me,
Absolutely.
like one of the, next to unschooling and alternative education, one of the biggest influences on my life, well, I mean, Neil's going to think it's funny, but like, is this
I already
card.
know what it is.
Yeah, it's a card game that I play. I think, I don't know if I told you, but like, I mean, there's so much stuff like that. Like one of the biggest things, like I've definitely learned, one of the biggest things I've learned from playing the game is failure is not a bad thing at all. Like I'm not just saying this because I'm like, I don't know. Like failure is almost more exciting than winning.
Like you're not saying this
because failure is more exciting than winning because you know you've learned something. You can figure out something of why you lost. Like I won this week and I lost this week. Why is that? Like I had this new deck. I built this new, like I had this idea. It's like a lot of the decks is like working. You have to work on it and you have to fix it and tweak it and you can take weeks to do it. And a lot of the times you have to put in a lot of effort and a lot of failure has to go into it before you find something that you really like. And you figure like, well, this card kind of sucked. It didn't really work with anything. I'll probably take this out. And that's how people learn to play the game. Like the head designers of the game, they go on record and they say that they make cards that are explicitly bad so people fail. And then they realize that this card is bad. Like they'll print cards just so people will fail.
Okay. I love this. I've heard you talk about this game before, and I'm loving it each time you explain it more.
They print cards specifically. They print cards specifically because they're bad to teach new players when they're building decks to realize, to like critically think about each card and realize how to spot a bad card, how to spot a good card.
So that's one I think is like one of the greatest parts of the game is people learn through failure. Every single person that starts out sucks. Like they suck. You do not. It's just not a game that you can get into and be really good. It's not like a sport that
even if you get like a great deck, you can get absolutely stuck.
Like I give Neil plays sometimes, and like I gave him the best deck in the world right now to play with.
And I got like
cards, and Neil does fine with it. Like
I got just the first time I used it, I lost 3 out of 4 games, and I won 1 only because I went against someone who like didn't understand some of the basic mechanics. But as I've been going on, like I've been catching everything, and I've been like able to do, like certain combos, not even just combos, but just like understanding like if I do this, this, and this, and this, I'm gonna win. If I do this, this, and this, and this, and I'm not gonna win, or I can live a little bit longer because it's all about like stringing the abilities of the cards and just understanding like what are all your options on the table, what are all the different paths you can take. It's kind of like chess in a sense, but it's not an even playing field. It's not.
Well, because it sounds like these cards, if I've heard, they have like characteristics basically.
Yeah, basically.
So given a situation, it's
some
what
cards
characteristics do I need in this situation? And when I play my card, I don't know what everybody else is going to play, but they're going to play their card and, oh, wait, this does trump that or whatever, right? Like this one beats this one. Is that how it works?
Yeah, to an extent.
Okay.
But a lot of it, I really like it. I was just thinking when you're talking about failures, like how important failure is.
Yes.
Because I don't like it's fun to win. Don't get me, I'm not saying it's not fun to win. But at the same time, when I'm winning, I'm not learning much. Like when I failed, like that's when I'm learning the most is through failure. Because you hate, failure sucks. Like it's not fun to, like for a very long time, I just went, like I didn't win it. Like I go every week. And for a long time, out of like 4 rounds, like a casual tournament, out of 4 rounds, I lost every single one for way too long. And then you've kind of like pick up a few things and stuff that aren't rules, but it's just like stuff you should do. It's like playing chess. Like you shouldn't put yourself, even though it's not in the rules, you shouldn't put yourself in check. You can.
Well, no, you can't.
Well, I know you
Not
can't.
put yourself
You
in
can't.
check.
I meant like
It isn't.
you can do things that can put you in the spot where your opponent can put you into check.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even though it's not in the rules, you shouldn't do it.
Although in Magic, you technically can like try to break down your defenses so much that you can kill yourself in Magic.
It's just like learning little things helps so much through failure. Through failure, you figure out it's almost like a computer. I mean, I know they because I'm also a little bit into like poker.
Yeah.
And they had this computer that they only taught it the rules. They didn't teach it anything. And it just played like trillions of games and learned through trial and failure what is good. Like, oh, this is a hand out of a trillion times. I kept this hand, and out of this percentage, I won that hand. So it just gave it the capabilities to play poker on its own and learn through failure. So it's almost like when you're playing Magic, you turn into a computer.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to be able to figure out like, oh, this sucks. Like this is really bad. And that's like one of the biggest skills in all of Magic is card evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
Figuring out what card is good and what card is bad, because like the designers they print cards that make you think like, oh, is this card good? I don't know. And I mean, there are cards that are just good and you don't need any evaluation, but they try to do that as little as possible where there's no thinking involved. Like some of the greatest cards ever, people thought sucked. Like they thought like, oh, this is the worst card they've ever printed. And then, they call it on that like, oh, this is actually amazing, especially in the beginning years.
Yes.
It's like no one understood anything about the basics of the game. Like they only knew the rules. They didn't know anything. Like it's like playing chess without knowing any of the like the Nimzovich defense or the Sicilian or whatever. Like none of that existed yet. And it's interesting to like go back and read articles from like 1998 and find this card. It's this card called Necropotence, which is one of the greatest cards of all. It's unbeatable if you can play it. And people rated it. It's like this magazine called Inquest Magazine, which was like the first Magic magazine. They rated it at 1 out of 5.
Oh, that's great.
And it's hilarious to read. And they have like this in-depth reasoning of why they think it sucks, and it's like hilarious. It's great to see like true like failure. People realize that, oh, Necropotence is actually completely busted and it's going to destroy everything and no one can beat it. It's not even close. So it's great.
You can't, you have to like certain things with it. Like you have to combine it with other, like that's how you know like if a card is like.
Yeah. And there's sometimes like there are decks that people find out and it's like, it's nothing new. People haven't been smart enough to figure it out, even though there's millions of people playing. One person figured it out and was smart enough to see the combo between these two cards.
Yes.
The power that they can have together. Maybe one, like there's one card that's very, very, very good, and it's not very good on its own, but when combined with other cards that are not as good, it becomes very good.
Yes.
So you have to piece them together, which is really fun. It's really fun trying to solve a puzzle when you make your own decks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, making decks is really fun. And actually, Magic kind of started its own gaming revolution with a lot of games that are a lot like Magic, but also games that are just for deck building that were created because people didn't have the money to buy the cards they wanted. But they like building the decks. So there's games where you just build the decks, which I think is, I played one yesterday. I thought it was kind of fun.
So each of these, I'm going to try and look at this because you're teaching me something and I'm trying to hear what you're saying. Like you heard what I said and you connected it to Magic, and I'm going to try and hear what you just said and connect it back to entrepreneurship.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
So the failure was the point of departure that we talked about. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I can see the point you're making, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the combining, like I wrote down combining, right? And how you can have something that didn't seem valuable, but it's just connecting it to just something else. So now you have to be able to see that, right? And how do you know to do that now? Is it just experimentation? Are there resources out there that there's like because you mentioned things like Inquest Magazine, right? Which is a business that was created possibly by the makers of Magic, but more likely by someone like you who was into Magic early on, saying, ooh, we could have like a way to like talk about this and to release, and those become their own businesses. So you have this interest in Magic, right? And then all around this, there's probably like at least dozens, if not more, businesses. Like the game that you just said is just making decks. I'm not sure if these are actually developed by the original people.
No, they're not. They're created by other people.
Other people.
Companies.
Yes. So, and then you have things like, I mean, I've seen people, there's a lot of movement towards in-person experiences. I think what I've heard, and I can't really cite anything, but I know that like, Jim's touring and doing comedy shows. There's The Moth. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they're a storytelling. And instead of just reading stories, it's you go to watch stories in person. There's lots of like in-person experiences are happening. There's new businesses popping up in that way that tie back to things that were online. Because like, it's almost like people are craving that, like, and so I'm not sure, because Magic sounds like you already have to. It's not completely online. Like you actually need to play these games, right?
Yeah, you need to play it like to get it.
Yeah, and it's not online. It is. Is there online versions, or is it?
Well, it came out after. There is an online version, but it's only because so like people that are, I mean, you don't have to be really good to use it, but it's mainly for people that are really good, so they can play 24/7 with someone else who's also very good.
Okay.
Because before, it's like the original mindset of Magic, which I think is really fascinating, is there are cards that the guy who created it, Richard Garfield, he's a mathematician, and he just made it just because he was bored, I guess. I don't think he was trying to make any money off of it, but he made cards that were so much better than all the other ones. It like was ridiculous. And they understood that at the time. There are certain cards that are so obviously amazing. You just have to have basic card understanding skills to know that they're much better than everything else. And they're like the ones that are, I don't know, $25,000. And like he thought that just by making them rare, it would stop people from having a lot of them. But it got so incredibly popular that everyone just bought 1 billion packs of it, and everyone had every single card. But yeah, there's like lots of resources, and it can be online, but you're right. There are lots of businesses that have come from it, like card selling businesses. I mean, there's I don't know, a tremendous amount of those.
Like there are shops like they don't just sell Magic stuff, but there are like shops that host like Friday Night Magics, their tournaments, and just like people go there to buy cards, set up their cards, play with other people.
Like there's a lot of businesses. Well, they're called LGSs, local game stores, and that's where people go and play Magic. And I mean, there are a tremendous amount of them. I mean, like whenever I'm on vacation, I like trying to find them because they're everywhere, because there's people who play Magic everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's really cool to meet other people. That's where you can meet other people. Or like this fall, I'm going to this thing called a Grand Prix, which is a really big tournament in New Jersey. Well, I think there's like 20 year round all over the world. But this one, Grand Prix New Jersey, I mean, it's pretty large because it's right, I think it actually is they call it Grand Prix New Jersey, but it's in New York. And there's like 1,500 people that go to it every year. And it's really cool, the Grand Prix, because they have vendors everywhere. It's like it's like a convention.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Convention.
It's half convention, half really enormous tournament.
What was that?
Half convention,
but like really enormous.
It's like a 1,500 person tournament.
Got it.
But you can also just go around and you can meet artists that are there. Like there are a lot of the artists that do the cards. That's one of the biggest things about the game is the art.
Yeah,
really high quality art. I mean, because it's all original artwork for every single card. There's 22,000 individual cards, so there's 22,000 different arts. But they all had to pay someone to do them.
Yes.
And that's like one of the biggest things. So people love to meet the artist and get their card signed by the artist, which I love to do. I got to meet like one of my favorite artists last year at it, and I got to talk to him about like this one card explicitly that I really love, which I just thought that was awesome. Like getting to meet someone who like I've looked at the art for like a really long amount of time, and it's cool to see the guy that like actually drew it.
Yes.
And get to talk about like his like what he thought about it, and little Easter eggs in the art I never really even noticed, which is really cool. And you get to meet all like the original. I mean, there are some people that have really ridiculously long lines to meet,
Mm-hmm.
and then there are others that are less popular. But
So,
that's like one of my favorite parts are all the businesses and like trading. Another aspect of it is the trading is really big. I mean, you can go and it's really cool because me and my friend, we share all of our cards. So we can make really expensive decks for very cheap because we just have all the cards that maybe we only end up spending $5 a week instead of people that spend like $200 in a night, which is ridiculous. I mean, some of the decks are, I don't know, $30,000. And they're pretty, I don't know how someone could spend that much. But it's cool that like the trading aspect of people going online and going to all the websites and seeing like, oh, I see here for $3. You want to trade $3? And this guy, well, it was slightly annoying. I really wanted the card and I was going to get a good deal on it, but he didn't want to do, I was like 10 cents off. And he didn't want to do the trade for 10 cents. So I had to give him a dime. I thought it was kind of hilarious.
and this is a trading website, basically?
No, well, it's just in person.
Oh.
Like
So at the actual places, these LGS, the local gaming
game stores. Yeah, people, they really care about down at the dime. But there are also really cool websites. There's this one called, I forget what it's called, but you can trade cards for coins. So let's say you have a card, someone else wants the card, and they can give you coins. So even though your card might not be worth like to the other person, it's kind of like an online currency for Magic cards. But I mean, to those people that have value because the currency is backed up by Magic cards. Like, I mean, it's different from like Bitcoin because, I mean, Bitcoin, it's not really backed by anything. It's not backed by gold, but the coins on this website are backed by Magic cards that you can use those coins, you know, by Magic cards. So to those people, it's worth something. But I guess it's all, I guess money is just valued by what you think it's valued by.
Yes.
Whatever your
Well, I think,
perception of value.
I think money is like, oh, well, okay, so I hate to use, because this guy's kind of, I mean, he's not a scam artist, but he's just kind of,
It's a great way to start off a sentence.
he's like one of these online gurus who, you know, Ty Lopez doing.
Oh yeah,
He's got
he owns the enormous house.
He owns the enormous house that is on Zillow.com.
Buy books, read books.
Yeah. But there's one thing that he said that I actually really liked. And yeah, it's a little hypocritical for him to say this. He's like this massive, like, apparently, like, millionaire. He's just like, money's not that important. Here's my Lamborghini. Money's not that important. But anyways, but there is, what he said that I really liked. He said, think of money as fuel units. And you need enough fuel to get through life. And you can get to places further away if you have more fuel. But that's all it really is. I really like that idea. And now, you do need fuel because, like, you can't go anywhere. You're not going to go anywhere, you know, and that's bad. But, and so I like that idea of it. And it's not like, oh, money's just fuel. I don't care. It's not the point. The point is that it's really nice to get to those places instead of just thinking as this like very essential thing. And I'm not again, I don't think that's devaluing what it's having more money, but I think it's just putting it into perspective.
Yeah.
I don't think it's devaluing earning a lot of money or trying to pursue a career that gives you, a lot of money. I think it just puts it into perspective as what it is. And that's all it does, I think, just puts it into perspective. Puts the world into perspective.
I know my mom, we have this, argument's the wrong word for it, but she always talks about how, like, in her mind, money is freedom
Mm-hmm.
and opportunities.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting too. I'm a well, fan is the wrong word, but there's this artist I like, and he did a YouTube series on like hitchhiking across America, and his whole thing. Well, it's funny because in this whole thing, they're trying to spend as little money as possible, and it's him and his nephew, but his nephew's older, and they're trying to hitchhike and make no money. And I learned later that he's worth like $200 million because he did some artwork for Facebook, and instead of getting $60,000, he wanted stock, and now he's worth $200 million. And he did this whole interview about how, in his mind, like he could do everything he wanted before he had all the money, and the money now is just like something that got in his way. Like people were annoying him, and his friends like just started to leave because they just wanted the money. And like, so it's fascinating to see two people's perception of money. Like in this guy's mind, money is just an annoyance essentially. And he could, he didn't really need a lot of money to do what he wanted to do before. And on her mom's mind, it's freedom. Like in her mind, when she thinks of money, she thinks of being able to do whatever she wants and travel and do all this stuff. But I think it's really fascinating. Like people, like you have two totally different perceptions of what money is to them. So
Well, I think the one person, not your mother, the other guy, is looking at and saying, how do I get what I want without the money?
Mm-hmm.
And your mom sees the money as the path to getting what she wants. So that foundational belief creates two totally different experiences
Mm-hmm.
in how you use money and how you like, and probably how you actually motivation to earn it. See what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because I've seen, like, for me, even as I look at this next thing that I want to do, I know what's more important is not the amount of money I make. It's more about having the freedom, the lifestyle, the different check boxes that I believe I want in my life, and then say, how do I make money doing those things? So you could start from how do I make money to do the things that I want to do, or you could say, how do I do the things I want to do and make money doing them? I think that's what sounds like he's doing, is how do I do the things I want to do and like pay the least amount or make some money? Because he might be bartering. He might be, I'm not sure how he's doing his cross-country trip with less money, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, it was, I mean, well, that show is really, like, whenever I watch it, like, I probably watch it like once a year, and it's like 5 hours long. It's like broken up into 5 parts. I always find it so inspiring. It's like the whole way he gets across is just through like hitchhiking and train hopping. And it's just like the characters, it's like an adventure across
Mm-hmm.
America. And I just thought that was so fascinating. I mean, that's like something that's like kind of, I like on my bucket list, I guess you could say. I just think that looks so awesome. But like the same thing with the commune. I've always been fascinated like with the idea of a commune, like communal living.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's so fascinating. I was actually talking to this guy. It's pretty funny. He's so me and my dad, well, we like to go to the JCC, the Jewish Community Center,
Mm-hmm.
even though I think like, well, on my dad's side we're kind of Jewish, but most people there are not Jewish. Like 90% of the people there aren't Jewish, but there are a few Jewish guys, like older guys, that on Wednesdays they meet up and they play ping pong. And my dad knows one of them from the gym, and they all. It's quite funny because my dad he spent a year in Israel, and he can speak Hebrew somehow. It's kind of odd. He does not seem like the type of person that can speak 2 languages, but he talks to the guys in Hebrew. And he was talking to this one guy, and he hints a lot. He's like 80 years old, that he was a spy for Israel. It's kind of funny. And he kind of backs it up. Like my dad, we were talking to him about Krav Maga, which is like Israeli martial arts. And
Right.
like, do you know anything about Krav Maga? It's like, I know nothing about Krav Maga. And he was talking about, well, one thing, my dad was talking to him in Hebrew when we first walked in to play ping pong, and he used the female form when he asked, like, is she good at ping pong? He asked, is like she good at ping pong? When he's talking about me, like he thought I was a woman. But somehow that got into people with beards. And he was talking about, he's like, oh, yeah, well, one time I grew up my beard really long because I was in, like, he used what he was like, I was an Arab. And he can speak 9 languages.
Wow.
Like, you're like, oh my God, this guy's ridiculous. And he said that he lived, I mean, he doesn't, I mean, he kind of backs it up by being able to speak 9 languages. And we asked him, how does he know all these? He's like, I can't tell you. Which is kind of, he's like, he might be bullshitting, but he's pretty interesting. And he was telling us a story. Like, he was confusing a commune with communism.
Mhm.
He had to live through communism because he, well, 2 crazy things happened to him. He was living in like I think he was born in Poland, and he had to flee from the Nazis, and he had to live in like a cave for 2 years or something ridiculous. And he was like doing it with a bunch of other Jewish families. And then he said Stalin then came and was like, oh, we freed you, but also you're our slave now. And that's like his, I mean, he has a pretty graphic perception of communism because he had to live through it. But he was, well, also so in Israel, there are these things called kibbutz, which are like kind of like communes that are funded by the state.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was like, they don't make any money. They're only funded by the government. But I was like, no, but these aren't funded by the government. And he was like, commune, no good.
Yeah.
We're like, no, but it's not communism. It's commune.
So what do you like about commune?
What do I like about a commune?
Yeah.
I think the idea of like, well, I think it's really fascinating, like living on a farm. I always thought that was just cool. But also like the communal living aspect, I think it's a lot like Sudbury. Because Sudbury, and I wanted to live on a commune. Actually, I don't know if it was before Sudbury. Maybe it was. I don't really have a timeline for when I started thinking about it. But it's like you almost have to live with, well, not almost. You pretty much are living with them. I mean, you're spending 8 hours of your day with someone, with like 20 people. It's not like you can really get away from them. It's really difficult to try and get away from them. They're evil.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to spend all my time with Neil. No, it's like, it is like that. You have to get really good with sharing your time with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the communal living aspect, I think that's the biggest part I like about it. And everyone working, like, it sounds cheesy, but like working together to have like a common goal of having, like, you know, a sustaining farm.
Yeah.
I think it's like kind of like an escape, like from, I don't want to say like an escape from capitalism because that sounds too socialist.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like
the consumer culture.
Yeah, I think that's what I would like. I think that would be pretty fascinating. And to see what it's like to not live in that type of environment where you have to be depending on others for your, you know, your food, your life. I mean, it's like there's just way too many things that the government can fuck up. Not like the government's the only person at fault. I mean, the businesses, the government, they can all screw with you.
Like, it basically it's like, I think like if you want to put it into very like layman's terms type thing, you could just say things that are very essential to you that are basically in other people's hands.
Mm-hmm. That I have no control over. And not like I'm a total control freak, but I like to have some idea over like where my food is coming from and, you know, who's taking care of my food.
So when I think of a commune, because I've actually talked to, I just did a project and I did some interviews of people who had self-directed or grown up unschoolers. And there was a guy who had actually called me from New Zealand who lives in like an intentional community with grown unschoolers. So he was giving me a perspective on and he was like in his 70s, on what he witnessed in this. But I was more like trying to keep listening to him on that, but just like fascinated by the idea of like, you know, it was a shared interest in child rearing, basically, of how this group of people started to come together. That like, much like what you're saying about Sudbury is like, okay, we want to learn in a different way, and we can do that individually, as I know, you know, some of you started that way, just doing it at your house. But when you're in community, then you have that interdependent learning that you're doing and learning from each other, but helping each other and creating, maintaining the environment that you want to live within. Like, right? Is that kind of part of it too? That like you get to, because I do know that these things do get, I don't know, I say misinterpreted as socialism, because I've had even some local conversations with people who we were looking at how might we create like a cooperative business. And it was to allow like artists to really do their art stuff, their makers to do their making stuff and not have to think about things like pricing, packaging, marketing, taxes, like all the stuff that if you're going to be an independent business owner, even a franchise business owner, I mean, you have to be able to handle all of those little things that aren't stuff you probably really love, right? I mean, if you're going to go into business because you want to be an artist, taxes doesn't really sound like it would be exciting to that person, right? But so it was, how do we create one business where these are different product lines? And that is still something that, in terms of when I think about working with youth, is trying to say, is there a way to create a cooperative business to have it be where you get to make some product, and then you're more focused on, because when you're making a product to actually market it to someone, obviously there should be a market, like, and in the magic world, there is already a market. Like, so there could be a market for more products going around that space because it already exists. And we talked about that a little bit, but like something else, even me saying to do education for, or parents to overcome this trust issue, I'm not sure there's a market there. I believe there is, right? But if I allowed people, if I could create the place where it's people could plug into and have that the collaborative end of things, like a cooperative is pretty much all of us own the business and there's a distribution way of how, so it's like shareholders, but they're actually working shareholders more, is the way that business is structured. And it's not common, because when you say it, people think, well, that sounds like socialism. Like, literally, I've had people tell me this, and I'm like, no, when you look at things like Airbnb, is kind of, it's one business, but individuals are making money off of it, right? Like, are you familiar with
free market thing?
What?
Isn't it still a free market thing?
It is a free market thing, and it just it's part of what's called like more of a sharing economy. Like, we're moving more into this. There's a lot of sharing things, whether or not it's Lyft and what is the Uber and Airbnb and all that. But a lot of those are structured as one corporation, and then you get a bunch of people doing independent contracting. And that's one model, but there is another model to say and it's more of a democratic model again, like all of us own it, so we all vote towards how things work. And then you're making money more from the work you're putting into it too, but you're also a shareholder, so you're kind of getting share money. And so in my case, like, these are the things when I think about trying to empower youth to make money, it's not as much just trying to say, because I know there's a lot of stuff related to do it successfully, like, and not get in trouble with taxes and all that, is to say, how do we do these things together? And that's not been done as far as I've seen. So, but it's in line more with the commune thing. Like, you decide, instead of saying, I want to work for someone else, you're still working for yourself. But you're not having to take on all of the stuff. You're having to trust other people to do their role. So it's a lot of what you were saying about how the Sudbury works, right?
Yeah, and I think what's really fascinating about Sudbury too is it's like a common sense thing. It's like I know me and Neil have this discussion a lot about hate speech, like hate speech is really hard to define when people say, I want to make hate speech illegal. Like with 300 million people in
It's like, is it
America,
defined by
it's
what they're
impossible.
saying, or is it defined by how you feel? It gets to the point where it gets hard to define,
Mhm.
what is
So-
hate speech, and it gets to a point where you get to go down a rabbit hole about. I mean, yeah, you can, and then you got the problem with, even if you do like put strict definitions on it, you have like a case law type basis where you don't know how it goes, and that's why. I mean, the only speech there is speech that's illegal in the United States. Like that is true.
Inciting violence.
Yeah. Yeah. You cannot tell people, hey, go kill this person. You can't say that. You cannot say, make untrue, like you can say, I hate this person. I think they're a horrible human being. You can say, I hope they die. But you can't say, this person killed somebody. You can't say that because that's slander. You're slandering them illegally. You can lie, but you can't lie to defame their character. You can say, in my opinion, they're a horrible person, but you cannot lie to defame their character. So these are the things that directly affect people's lives, as in it can literally, one of them can kill someone, one of them can kill them. The second one can get them ostracized from society.
But what I was going to say is
the only like there are some technical laws that are really stupid, like saying what you can't say, but these are the ones that are really enforced. You cannot slander people for the reason stated. You cannot incite terrorism for the reason stated. And that's pretty much it for the main ones. That's pretty much it. Everything else is really free game. And that's what I think is really cool about free speech, is that you're not really judged by the law for what you say. You're judged by society for what you say. I think there's a very, very fine line between, and that's really socialism. I feel like it integrates some of like the building block, not the finalized thing like Russian socialism. I think it's more the quote, the starting of socialism is integrating society's opinions with the actual lawfully enforced opinions. And I think we should keep a clear separation between those things. Society's opinions should be clearly over here, and the law should have very, very not vague. Should have guidelines on only very specific and clearly harmful things. Anything even slightly left up to interpretation should go on the societal side. And I guess maybe that's not correct because there's case law and things like that, and the laws are interpreted like things like fair use are interpreted all the time. But things that aren't clearly like physically damaging, like you can get physically damaged by defaming someone. You can literally cause them to get fired and lose a bunch of fuel units and money, and to they can be homeless. They cannot be able to afford groceries. These are actual like things, and these are causational things. Like you can say, oh well, someone might get their feelings hurt and then they'll do this. It's like, yeah, but we can't control what people feel. It's like we can only control what the causational things we say are. We can't control how people's interpretations are, which is why when we get into the things where when we try to extend the realm of free speech to how people interpret it, we have a lot of problems because people obviously take things so differently. So we can't. It just go down the rabbit hole. We should have societal rules. We have many societal rules that I think are great rules. These are not laws, and they never should be laws, but they are societal rules. You shouldn't go up to a child and say, hey, fuck you, kid. You shouldn't do that. You should go to a 3-year-old and say that. That's a societal rule, not a law. Well, if you just keep saying it's harassment, just constantly harassing them. But other than that, you can just there are societals. You shouldn't do that to a 3-year-old. That's a societal rule, not a lawful rule.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I think what I was going with is how I think our school I think Sudbury is really fascinating too. Is we can have rules like respect because you can have common sense.
Because one, we're not a government, so we don't need to actually have, because we don't.
Yeah, and every rule can be essentially for interpretation for JC to decide. Unlike you can't really have that in an American judicial.
I think you're putting too much faith in the American justice system there. So many things are left up to interpretation.
No,
Like,
I know.
I'm
I
putting
know.
too much faith
But I
in
mean
the system there.
much more than the American justice system.
Yeah.
So a lot. A lot.
Because we can have like in a subway school common sense, like common sense laws and we can also talk about the spirit of the law. And technically you don't have freedom of speech in subway schools because you have to respect everyone. But again, that's not a lawful thing because we're not a government. We're simply a voluntary organization that, unlike the government, you can change very easily. The government is not, you have to get someone else to want to do what you want to do. Then you have to make sure that they keep their promise. Then and only then can you vote for someone to vote for them because there's the electorate part. And if it's for president, depending on which state you live in, your vote could count more or less than other people. So in America, it's such a convoluted process. But in Sudbury, it's a direct democratic process.
Mm-hmm.
Like anyone can go to school meeting and propose a motion.
It was funny. I heard it's like democracy is great with less people, with less than 200 people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, socialism can be great with less than 200 people.
A lot of things could be great with. That's why we just got to kill everyone. That's what has to happen here.
That's how we should just kill them.
Really, that's your conclusion, Dylan.
Let's just kill everyone until we get to like the lowest possible amount we can have and still have like a viable gene pool, and then we're great.
That's a Neil thought. Neil. Neil's laughing now. I'm gonna laugh it off.
Yeah, in school we were learning about, whoa, I can actually speak. So in school we were learning about global warming and things like that and pollution.
Mhm.
And two girls in my class were like, hey, we have a plan on how to solve all that. Kill every human on Earth. Just get them out of the picture. Like, what? No, it's just, okay, fine.
Genocide. It works.
It works. Genocide works. You can't deny the
We
result.
just need to have like the forest fires of humans.
I mean, look, we don't need to have genocide. We can just neuter everyone at birth.
These are solutions. They're maybe not the
Does it
one.
violate constitution?
I like you.
Violate human rights? Yes. But does it fix the problem? Yes. Just
That's not, Neil, that's
Hey, just like Thanos,
not a final answer, just a thought. Just a thought.
just like Thanos said, like just more resources to go around.
I think something interesting is that Thanos was actually proven because it's like
Yeah, he was
it's so
kind of
wrong.
right.
Thanos is very wrong because it's like because he's completely ignoring the concept of post-scarcity civilizations, which totally probably should exist, like in that kind of sci-fi universe, a society that's they're past the scarcity. We are all in scarce civilization. Everything is scarce to an extent. Everything is a limit. In this post-scarcity civilization, all of us theoretically should have like resources to the point where we should not even need to care. Like, honestly, it's not that hard to believe, considering if we, like there are some practices that we're doing, if we changed them, we'd be able to grow much more food. It's not too hard to imagine a post-scarcity civilization, especially an interplanetary one. So, yeah, that's why Thanos' plan wouldn't work in Avengers Infinity Wars.
Wait, why would it work?
But it would work. Thanos' plan would work. It's just a better solution without murdering half the galaxy.
Yeah, because I didn't like the murdering half the galaxy kind of concept. So, but I'm not, this post-scarcity and what you're referring to, I'm not familiar with. And post-scarcity, is that abundance?
Yeah, so the concept is basically that a civilization in their technology will eventually reach the point where they no longer like need to achieve, like right now, I'm gonna give an example. We need more food, like not Westerners, some Westerners, but not most Westerners. Like in a lot of places not like, I'm talking about not really the places in Africa with a GDP per capita, like, or a human development index of a certain height. I'm talking like mainly the Central African countries. We have a lot of starvation going there. India, China to a lesser extent, North Korea definitely, but it's not open that breadbasket. That breadbasket makes opposite what that is. But so you have all these places where they need things very badly that they're in short of. Food obviously comes to mind. Now let's talk about Westerners too. Oil. We have a lot of oil right now, but oil is something that we really, really need. We need it to do pretty much almost everything that's going on the planet. You see all these resources basically that we're scared, like, what if this runs out? It's like, why is the Middle East, why are these Middle Eastern deserts out in the middle of nowhere so rich? Like Saudi Arabia, Oman, United Arab Emirates. But you see, the reason is because of oil, because they're built on these resources that we desperately need. There's a theory, and honestly a pretty damn good one, that we'll reach a point with our technology and with our, not even technology, we have the ability to technically end world hunger if we change a bunch of our practices. But we have the ability to
Soylent.
end a bunch of the, Soylent, to end, like, we will eventually reach the point where we just won't need to worry about things running out. Not that we'll have an unlimited resource, but the fact that we know how to keep getting it. We can, especially in interplanetary civilization. So Thanos' whole point in Infinity Wars, I'm trying to explain a very complex concept through a movie, pretty good movie to be honest. To Avengers Infinity War, Thanos' whole theory was, his well, not even his theory. He said that my planet we went into like a whole resource war and the entire planet got destroyed because we just didn't have enough resources. He proposed a plan to the government saying that, hey, why don't we just random raffle, based on nothing, kill half the population? That's the only way our species will survive. So, and of course, they didn't listen to him. They're like, that's insane. So the whole species basically went extinct because they just didn't do that and they didn't have enough resources. And yeah, that's going to happen with a lot of species. However, to wipe out half the universe's population, simply because, and keep in mind, before he got the Infinity Gauntlet, what Thanos used to do, his day job used to be going to random planets and wiping out half the population. But now he can do it like a snap of his fingers and completely not have to do that anymore. So the whole thing is that a species will eventually reach the point where they just no longer have to, vie for more resources or enough resources. They just have those essential resources.
Isn't that only like a temporary solution?
Well, are you talking about like population growth and stuff?
I mean, like, if there are two things I'm thinking about. One thing is that isn't that like a temporary solution? Because eventually the resources will.
You're talking about like Thanos' thing, right? Or which one?
Yeah, Thanos' thing.
Yeah. Yeah, because once the population grow again, it's like everyone's like,
and the resources will still be down. Like, it's not like they're gonna regenerate. Besides, like, food and things.
Also, aren't you gonna have less people to like tend that land and like work and like in
yeah.
If you get to the point of automation where you no longer need humans to do all that, then you're probably at a point where you can get to at least close to post-scarcity point. So it's like you're kind of just killing everyone right before they reach the finish line.
And I'm thinking, the second thing I'm thinking about is, you were talking about how Thanos went to planets and wiped out half their population.
Just, like, a massive army,
willy-nilly. Yeah, and then when he did the whole snap thing, bada bing, bada boom, then he just left a quarter of the population on what's left over, just like a quarter of what started with.
Helped, you're now screwed. Because now 3/4 of your population are gone. Yeah.
Also, a random raffle. Just what happens if you kill what happens if you kill, like, I don't know, a scientist that was
going to find out,
cutting edge technology or something like that.
Post scarcity. Sorry, man, you're at the raffle. This could end all of this. Nope, you're dead. And also, it's like, I don't understand, like, people seem to have this idea of just like killing a bunch of people, but it's like just neuter this, like, sterilize them. It's not that. I mean, yeah, that's a lot. That's still a bad thing to do. But if that really becomes a problem, like, I used to be sold on overpopulation being an issue. I'm no longer sold on it because of the fact that the human population is actually going to peak and then it's going to be on a
Yeah, it's going. The UN predicts that the human population will peak at about 12 billion people. Then it will just start gradually going down.
So I'm not as sold as overpopulation being an issue as I was, especially considering technology will keep getting better, allowing us to help more people. Now, if it were an issue, hypothetically, where our population will just continue to grow, by the way, I think I did a whole explanation about why the population, why population growth slows down. I did a whole, I don't know if anyone wants to go into that detail, but I mean, it'll take too long probably.
There's a video by Kyrgyzakt, I think that's how you pronounce it. That we talked about this in another episode, that they talked about how the population and stuff. And yeah, another thing to add is that when I was in school, we talked about overpopulation, and I have the same opinion that you have, Neil. So I was just kind of sitting there just like, wait, but
but what about logic?
But what about this? And I tried explaining it to my friends, and they're like, what? No, no. I'm like, why?
Kids are stupid, man.
Well, they're growing up in this thing where they have to remember sit up and shut up, sit up, shut up, and don't do anything. It's like, oh, that guy we talked to, he's like, how do you guys even build social skills in Sudbury? It's like, and then Dylan made an excellent point. He said,
how do you make social skills when you're not allowed to talk?
Yeah,
I said I have a skewed idea of what public school is. It's like, no, I don't. Exactly.
Dylan's been to public school. What do you mean has a skewed idea of what public school is?
I understand that there's plenty of kids in public school that have no fucking idea how to have any amount of social interactions.
And just to be clear here, if someone does a bunch of research on Saudi Arabia, no one says you can't have valid opinions on Saudi Arabia because you haven't been to Saudi Arabia. It's like, well, we have this thing called the internet now, and you can actually research things. And even if that was true, valid, that you can dismiss people's opinions, Dylan has been to public school.
What you were saying, you haven't been to the whole thing with your example of Saudi Arabia. How do you apply that logic to things like World War II? Oh, you weren't in World War II, so you can't have a valid opinion on it. Or you weren't a part of the American.
Think it existed.
Yep.
I don't think it ever happened.
You weren't a part of such and such genocide or whatever, so you can't form a valid opinion on it. It's like,
Holocaust did not happen. I was not alive. I did not experience it. I cannot have any opinion on it because it didn't happen.
Yeah, it's like that's why I think it's really funny whenever anyone uses that excuse, like, oh, you don't understand because X, Y, and Z. It's like, so you're saying historians literally can't exist? Historians have no right to talk.
Historians can't exist. I'm going to use that. Historians can't exist.
Historians, they just have any opinion, and they all are invalid, and everything they say is completely invalid, and they have no idea what they're talking about.
Or that's just anything in general. Just
that's just talk about
weird. That's just weird logic. If I look at, I don't know, I'm trying to think of another example. If you say this book has I don't know, this is really weird, but this book has a typo. You can't just say, oh, well, you weren't there when it was written, so how do you know?
So I think I hear you guys, if I'm listening to this from the outside, because you all just went around on something that I knew nothing about, but this movie or something by
Infinity Wars.
What is it?
Infinity Wars. Did you see Avengers Infinity Wars?
No. So I'm writing it down but
it's very fast.
The aspect is I'm just listening and also saying, while I think you can have an opinion on things you don't have direct experience with, I think you always have to question, what gave me this? What am I actually basing this on? And is that, and being willing to shift with new information. And because all of this stuff, like thinking about something and, you know, population is not something I've spent a lot of time thinking about because it's just not an area of interest of mine. Obviously, when you guys have talked about it, it has come up before, so you have had the discussion, but it and you're using different sources for that. And then it's just a matter of like, I'm taking it in and I can say like, oh, well, killing off the population, like that's not one I'd be willing to do. Like it's not willing. So, but ultimately that's when you start to say, okay, well, how the first few ideas that are going to come up. So are sometimes like, even in business, it's like cut money, you know, let's cut jobs, let's cut spending, let's reduce. So it's like, you always think of these like, easy, I don't want the easy solutions, sometimes brutally easy. And then it's harder to get to the creative thinking to come up with something that's more. So, but yeah, I wouldn't want to kill off the whole population. I don't think you guys do either, but on one hand you say like, how else you start to question, like, how do we do these things? And that's where I do think that the technology and the brilliance of people who don't accept things like we have to kill off everybody will actually be the thing that says, how do we do it anyway?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I think that's really that's really like free thinking perspective. It's like how do we like, instead of like trying to follow this, trying to like literally obey the rules of what we already know. And I think what you were saying earlier, like near the beginning when we started talking about how like, I think that basically comes into it, that can be, if think a blanket statement that I always really like to say, like challenge your perspective, like always try to challenge perspective. I almost thought about, I was like, you know, I really like a t-shirt that says just challenge your perspective. I just thought about that, like that'd be a really cool t-shirt, just challenge your perspective.
Teacher?
A t-shirt, not
t-shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A t-shirt that says challenge your perspective. And
everyone watching, go to www.youthonsubjectsoftheworld.com for some neat for some Neil merch.
Buy some Neil merch. That'd be interesting.
I think Neil could do a bunch of merch, actually. Yeah. That's my point, is stuff like that. And that's actually where my thinking first started, was like watching people that, I'm not sure about you, but like products or brands like Gap and Hollister and stuff. I'm like, what are these? They mean something to the brand, the person who's wearing them, but they really don't mean anything. They, you know, so it's like, how can youth actually create brands or stuff that means something to them and means something to other people? And whether that's phrases that come out of something like magic or challenge your perspective or whatever, you know, it's really not, other people might wear that shirt, right? I mean, you can say it as a joke, but on the other hand, he goes right into, Nathaniel goes into marketing it. And that really is the way that some of these things, if it sounds good enough to a small group of people, then you just test it with other people. Like you could design it and then pre-sell it and be like, hey, and if nobody buys it, even after everybody's sharing it, like, then it really wasn't that great of an idea. And that's the failure that you learn from, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, but go.
I'm stealing that quote, Neil. I'm stealing that quote, Neil. Gonna sell a line of t-shirts.
The quote is genocide.
Challenge your perspective.
I feel like I from just quotes I had said. Dylan knows some of the quotes that I've said that could have made the clothing lines. I know. I definitely said, I like to try to make my points and then come back to them later and try to make them in a concise point, that, because insults, okay, I'm just saying something controversial, but insults work when it comes to making people pay attention. Insults really work. They work really well. Like, instead of just saying, I guess if you're making an argument, I saw this happen recently. You're making an argument, and then they're just like, oh, and they ignore, let's say the argument you make requires a certain context to what you said. And they just go and they say, let's say, ignore the context. It's a very, like, you know, primitive example. But instead of just saying something like it's such a, I don't say primitive again, such a primitive attitude that humans have, but it's a lot, you're much more likely to make it clear to, not to the person you're debating necessarily, but to the people that are listening to the debate, that you are even correct if you present your opinion logically, and also like if you're able to, it sounds so dirty, but able to insult them. It sounds like so scummy, but if you are able to, like, you can, instead of just saying, I don't think you're comprehending the argument properly here, you can say, look, I'm sorry, I just don't think you're smart enough to understand the argument I just made. Like, it's, and then saying the argument, like, you can't just see, I think it's a really powerful debate tool. It's a kind of a scummy debate tool, but it's a really powerful debate tool to be able to present a logical argument, and then present a counter and an insult, because it's also that comedic effect that makes people like it. Now, there's a difference between insult and an ad hominem attack. An ad hominem attack is when you use an insult in place of an argument, and that's really stupid. But an insult is just an insult. It doesn't necessarily have to be a horrible insult, like, I hope you and all of your family die. It's like not that kind of insult, but yeah, more of a comedic insult. It's like, look, I don't think you understand the argument. I think just you and your entire family should just die. Like, you gotta keep it upbeat. But I just think it's an interesting debate tool if anyone wants to use that. It definitely works, as long as you're making good arguments. You can't just if you just use insults in the arguments, it's an ad hominem attack, and it's not funny. It's bad debate etiquette. But yeah, that's my little rant on that.
I tend to avoid debate. I try to find common shared meaning. What can we agree on?
Neil's the complete opposite. Like,
I can tell.
I try to find things that people don't agree on.
Like, Neil, like the guy that we were talking to, we've been talking about a little bit, who didn't really understand like alternative education. As soon as he said he didn't get it, Neil was just like, "Wah!"
Yes, that's exactly what I did. That's exactly what I did.
To an extent.
To an extent, yeah.
It was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't had anyone to argue with in a while. I've been deprived.
I know Brian is. You haven't seen Brian in like.
I haven't seen Brian in a while, and it's starting to have an effect on me. I can't argue with it, and even I just don't have like the. And even when we like meet up at those meetings or whatever, it's like we don't have time to. And it's just, and of course, I even looked into the things he's done. I told you all the studies he sent me. They're such crap. I looked into them.
No one has any context on what you're talking about.
I'm just telling you. No, I'm just telling you. He's wrong. I'm right. It's so obvious.
Oh my God. It's gone insane a little bit. If people haven't noticed that yet. He doesn't. See, Neil's one of those unschoolers. Now, there's not too many of them that are completely socially inept. I have no idea like what a good social interaction is. I've never had one before.
I just imagine, Dylan, you going like, hello, I'm going to have a good social interaction with you, sir. Hello, my name is Dylan. I will now shake your hand. Very good.
To show that I am being open and friendly with you.
I am a friendly person having a social interaction with you.
I'm also going.
These are the standards for a social interaction. A, B, C, and D. Any questions, my good companion?
Dylan leading a seminar on how to conduct a good conversation.
How to Talk by Dylan Marcus.
No, that could be my business.
that could teaching people how to interact.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be a good one.
I think that'd be more interesting. Less interesting as a business, and more interesting to see like who comes to those seminars.
I was about to say, where's the market? Like,
I know. Is the market like someone you'd wanna? I don't know. I don't mean to be mean, but it's like I feel like because there are people who are like
losers.
People who are just very, very socially inept, and it's just very awkward to talk to some people. And it's not like their fault or anything. It's just that it creates awkward situations.
Depressed public schoolers. There's always them, and there's plenty of depressed public schoolers.
Begin to have a conversation. It's in here. I hope that'll be fun. Like teaching how to social interact. I like to see like. I think it's really funny. Okay, this is a really dumb side note that has no just no like productive meaning whatsoever. I just want to say
it's gonna be like a Daniel statement.
This is a Daniel statement. But there's just I feel like the what's really funny is to see experts like of really basic things and then see how they treat those basic things. It's just like a side tangent that I just think is really funny. like especially like a quote let's say an expert in like teaching people how to socialize. I feel like their social interactions are almost weirder than the people that they're teaching because
it's like
the
few amount of therapists I've ever met
are also messed up.
Are essentially like socially inept.
And see, the reason I want to talk about this is because I'm sure a lot of people know the movie Borat, right? Where Sacha Baron Cohen plays Borat, and it's supposed to be like a half social commentary, half comedy thing. And one of the skits is he goes up to this person who's like he wants to be taught how to socialize in America. But I won't go into the whole comedy stuff. But like the thing that the guy said, it was so basic and not even just basic, but kind of really awkward if you use your leg concept. So one of the jokes you can use is Americans find it very funny. If it's called a not joke, not a knock, a not joke, where basically you say, you make a false statement and then you just say not. And then it's like, no one says that. It's like, for example, your shoes are blue. Not. It's just like, I think that's just a really funny thing to see. People who are experts at really basic things try to do those really, really basic things. And it's just hilarious because more often than not, it's completely off what I feel like it's just because it's like a separation, especially social things. There's a separation. For them, it's like a professional thing. For everyone else, it's just like a thing that they just do. So it's like it becomes a separation of. It's like I feel like you detect that it's not very genuine. I'm not saying that it isn't, but I'm saying you just get this feeling that it's just not very genuine because it's literally what they do. So like you get this not genuine feeling like.
Maybe we're just so inferior to them we don't understand.
Yeah, we're so inferior that we just don't understand. We're just inferior to them. They're just so much better at social interactions that they're better than everyone else's social interactions, therefore can't socially interact. Isn't that a paradox?
Mm-hmm.
Neil, you saying that, I want to see two, 3 or 4 experts in social interaction just try to socially interact with each other. And just see what happens.
Today we're having a social experiment with people.
Hello, kind sir. It is very nice to meet you. My name is Mr. James. Hello, my name is David. It is a pleasure to meet you, sir.
Let me shake your hand. I will put my hand below both of our hands to indicate how friendly I am.
Yeah, side tangent. Useless side tangent concluded.
Neil, it's all Neil's fault. This whole thing is Neil's fault.
Technically is.
Also, this is a random question.
On the tangent?
Yes, please. This is a pretty funny tangent.
So,
Nathaniel?
Oh, sorry. But this is kind of random and off topic and just what happened to the...
What happened to the topic?
What happened? No, not that. What happened to the random Flash references?
What are you talking about?
Does no one remember those?
Like when people just make random like references, like which Flash, like classic, like comic Flash, like the Flash TV show.
The Flash TV show. Like,
I never actually heard those references.
I didn't really either. I just heard about the references that would happen.
About those things.
I have neither made them nor heard any references, but just people referencing referencing them.
What the?
People referencing. It's like reference inception. What?
Nicole, what were you gonna say though?
I said I'm lost. I was gonna actually try and bring it back and say because
So am I.
I'm lost now.
Daniel mentioned say depressed public schoolers.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And when I hear something like that, especially from Nathaniel, who I know has some day-to-day witnessing of things like that, is the fact, and I think I don't know if it was, you had said it in a way, just so you know, you are saying things in a way that are very business-minded. Because you said that in a way like as if they were a market. I don't remember how you said it, but that's why I wanted to kind of like come back to it because you were like, yeah, like as if we could like, do you remember why you said that though?
I mean, I go to public school
or something.
But I don't know. I guess just I'm starting high school. So I went to this startup thing where basically we met together. Like this was new students and kids who were like nervous about high school, like all got together and like did team building activities and stuff. And I just remember all of us were introverts, and it was just really funny, like just watching us try to interact with one another.
A room full of introverts.
Yep, like first day I walked in, everyone was just sitting down silent, just watching me as I walked in and just sat down.
Oh, God.
And we were all acting extroverted. We were all just introverts.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, woo.
Oh.
So, yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was in reference to the shirt comments or something, because those are things where it's like you focus on what would be sort of interesting or intriguing to a group, and a narrower group than just like we've talked on schoolers, but that's it's a bigger group, so.
Mm-hmm. Bigger group of people.
Yeah.
What did so Nicole, what did your daughter end up doing for school? Did you say she found another school?
Yeah, she found it's a middle college. It's actually it's the model of school that I work at too. So it's a high school on a community college campus. They could take college classes on the same campus throughout their high school years. So like we have people who graduate with like associate's degrees or pretty close to it.
That's pretty cool.
But I mean, and they're only doing 4 classes a semester typically, like a college would do. So I think there's benefit to that, and like instead of the 8 classes at a time, which is what I did when I was in high school. And I know a lot of other schools do. So, but it is still a lot of standard classes. Like I'd love to see more of more self-direction, more collaboration, structured in a different way. At my school, I have a voice in terms of trying to get some of that, but it's not in the regular teachers' classrooms, at least just in mine or in programs like team building or something like that. So, but yeah, it was, and I say it was like too little too late, because it's hard to recover something you guys said earlier. And I don't remember which one of you said it. Might have been Neil, where you were talking about like once they have the freedom, the forbidden fruit. That's one of your, like once you actually get the freedom to do something, how you can you don't know how to handle that if you've not handled it. You know, you haven't gotten the dose of it all the way along. You just like at 18, now you can do anything you want and you're free to do. And it's like you make a lot of bad choices only because you were so deprived of some of the things that now you just go after a lot. So I don't know. I don't know why I brought that up, but like, I just think that at least in this environment, there is some of that trying to get them to understand like the bridge between regular school and college, but it is pushing college. Like, and I don't necessarily think that every kid needs to run off to college, especially before you have a clue of what you want to do. And that's one of the,
that's something
you don't know what you want to do.
People go to college and they still don't know what to do. It's like,
and you're spending so much money then.
Yes.
And so, you know, whereas like in terms of knowing what you like to do, testing out what you like to do in terms of whether it's through volunteering, you know, entrepreneurship, something that allows you to try and like create something as a teen, you know, and be ready for whether or not you want to build upon that later on, you know. So I know that I didn't hear, like I said, Nathaniel's interest, but when I listen to you guys, like I definitely think you have things, and it's really starting to study those with the mindset towards who's, you know, where all these business
self-directing yourself to do it.
What?
I was saying quite literally self-directing yourself to try to do something.
Yeah, but also trying to see, and from, if you're looking at it just to learn, but you can also just keep saying like, okay, like, who are the businesses involved here? And they're not hard to find. Like half the time it's like the website, you could see the name of the business across the bottom of a website. You can see, an offer being made. Even if you're talking about like there's these trading things, but there's like this small portion of money that they're making. And if you look at the models that are out there, because a lot of, for my stuff, it's all just becomes a mashup of things that I've witnessed that I respect and believe in. Like t-shirts, you guys mentioned that naturally because you've seen people wear t-shirts that have phrases. I don't know if you're the kind of guys that wear t-shirts that have phrases. So are you the exact market for it? And then it's just, that's something that is obvious, but not everybody's going to go and say, well, how do I could I create a t-shirt business? Yeah, you can. And it's not that hard. Especially, I wouldn't recommend printing them all in advance. It would be something like Kickstarter or something where you actually, pre-sell them and get people to realize, you're drawing an audience or something. So.
All right. Well, I think we have to get down to our,
because we're actually, I think we're a little bit over. So Nicole,
you
want to say your closing statement, and then I guess we'll just.
My closing statement, you said?
Yeah.
Well, I've enjoyed being on here.
Thank you.
I got a chance to say a little bit, hear a lot more about your interests, and see how you guys interact, which I'm always amazed by. In my case, as I go forward, I will hope to hear more from different youth on whether they're interested in entrepreneurship, whether or not they'd want to do it in an online setting like with others, and really co-create that alongside me. And that's, so again, I'm Nicole Coulter. You can find me online at NicoleCoulter.com. I'll say that just because that's the way to connect with me. And I'd love to just hear more from different youth about things related to entrepreneurship and your interest in that.
Well, I'll go next. I just wanted to thank you for coming on, Nicole. It was really fun.
Thank you.
I always enjoy having these conversations.
Yeah. I'm glad we got a chance to talk again. And I still want to talk to you two about my course that I'm doing for the self-directed parents.
Sure.
And get some feedback on it because you were the inspiration for it. So
I think that's so awesome.
It's so cool. Yeah.
And your talks are in there. Like I connected to your actual video thing that you were. So that's one of the things, like you guys already do that. You put it out on your YouTube channel. So you're already ahead of the game on a lot of like some of the marketing things, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Nathaniel, do you want to
go? Sure. I'm not going to have much today. I'm not going to have much to say, but thank you so much, Nicole. But yeah, yep. Steve, nothing much to say.
Cool. All right, so I guess, all right, so I just want to say, so obviously, thank you for coming on. I think it's very important to have people involved with entrepreneurship on a show that's about self-directed learning, considering that so many self-directed learners go into entrepreneurship. I think this is a very important and productive conversation. And I think this is a conversation that needs to be had. So I just want to thank you for coming on and thank everybody for watching. We've gone over, but all right, thank you so much. And thank you for watching Youth on Subjects of the World, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Humanity has been on an epic journey of discovery, learning the truth about the world we live in. New discoveries about the true origins of humanity, ancient history, free energy, as well as the systematic corruption of world governments are now on the forefront of our daily reality. Is the world headed towards destruction based on control and power? Or is an opportunity now being presented to shift and uplift into a higher consciousness? My name is Mel V, co-founder and creative director of Conscious Consumer Network, an independent broadcast network that was launched on the 1st of January 2015. In the last 3 years, Conscious Consumer Network has broadcast over 2,800 shows in multiple languages, featuring guests from across the world, whilst creating media that is aimed at the creation of a free, fair, peaceful, just, sustainable world. Conscious Consumer Network provides full training and an interactive support network for all broadcasters, and we are always looking for inspiring and educational content.
Hi, this is Lainey Liberty.
And this is Miro Siegel.
In 2018, Conscious Consumer Network has expanded to multiple broadcast locations, increasing our availability and reach across the world, remaining on the cutting edge of independent media. If we wish to create a better world, we must first create better media, geared towards real education instead of indoctrination.
You guys really are what changing the world is going to be about. It's educating kids at a grassroots level.
Having become a pillar of stability in the turbulent world of independent media, we have even more going on in 2018. Conscious Consumer Network is a publicly funded network, and we rely on all of you to keep us on the air. Show your support for independent media by donating to our 2018 Network Support Fund. Dare to seek a better world. Support independent media.